At present, unfortunately, we still have modern-day Hoovers and his agents continuing to spread dissension and delineation among Black independent power initiatives, promoting the usual government dependency and assimilation, with certain Blacks being used against their own people, trashing Garvey's legacy and attempting to thwart the Pan-African Black nationalist movement with slogans like Pan-Africanism is dead, and inciting notions that Pan-Africanism has no benefit or achievements and should therefore be rejected. This rhetoric is now being pushed by a few popular social media influencers, and you also have a few bootleg, low-life, wannabe hustlers out there too. Can't forget them. But is it true that the pro-establishment so-called movements, such as the FBA and ADOS, have achieved more for Black people than Garvey? Well, let's briefly look at some of the effects Garvey had on the Black community. Elijah Muhammad built the Nation of Islam upon the foundation of Black self-reliance and African repatriation, derived directly from the Garvey movement. He referenced Garvey in the preface of his book, and according to Louis Farrakhan, the NOI was to honor Garvey as the forerunner of their work, which included businesses, real estate holdings, schools, and armed forces across the nation. Malcolm X, head minister of the Nation of Islam, almost single-handedly responsible for the NOI receiving national attention, largely due to his creation of the Final Call newspaper, an idea he repeated from his parents, who were Garveyites. Malcolm was a major domestic and international influence of the Black Power movement and regarded as one of the most powerful and beloved leaders of Black America to this day. Garvey also is credited with laying the groundwork for the civil rights movement. Though their tactics differed, Dr. Martin Luther King acknowledged Garvey as, quote, the first man of color to lead and develop a mass movement. He was the first man on a mass scale and level to give millions of Negroes a sense of dignity and destiny, and make the Negro feel he was somebody. King also began to echo Garvey's concepts of manhood and repeat his quotes, such as Black is beautiful. Stokely Carmichael, aka Kwame Ture, popularized the term Black Power and helped attempt to steer the civil rights movement toward Black empowerment. Leader of an independent Black political group called the Lowndes County Freedom Organization, which adopted a Black Panther as its symbol, which inspired the more famous group founded by Huey Newton and Bobby Seale. The Black Panthers' core ideals of self-reliance, racial identity, and community-based action came directly from Garvey influence. Patrice Lumumba, the first legally elected Prime Minister of the Republic of Congo, after he helped win its independence from Belgium in June 1960, his initiatives included true solidified control of Congo resources given back to the hands of the Congo people from the West. Lumumba was inspired by the works of Marcus Garvey. Garvey's Africa for the Africans philosophy also was the main inspiration for the Kikuyu people of Kenya's rebellion against British colonial rule, also known as the Mau Mau Uprising of the 1950s. An attempt to reclaim their land, the Kikuyu people used guerrilla war tactics and oathing rituals to combat the British Army. Many other Kenyans would also follow suit. Though defeated, this movement is what pressured the British into offering Kenya quasi-independent self-rule. Many African leaders who fought for independence owe their movements to Marcus Garvey, such as Kwame Nkrumah. Garvey's writings were a huge impact on Nkrumah while in college, proclaiming, long before any of us were even conscious of our own degradation, Marcus Garvey fought for African national and racial equity. I think that of all the literature I studied, the book that did more than any to fire my enthusiasm was The Philosophy and Opinions of Marcus Garvey. Leading away from British colonial rule, he named the new, quote-unquote, independent country Ghana and became its first president and prime minister. One of his first acts during this time was to name the national shipping line of Ghana the Black Star Line. Nkrumah also named Ghana's national soccer team the Black Stars and placed Marcus Garvey's Black Star in the middle of the national flag of Ghana, which can still be seen today. He famously said, "You laughed at Garvey, but you will never laugh at us." Though this was only pseudo-independence in reality, Nkrumah's vision of a united independent Africa still exists in Ghana today, with the African Union still remaining in some form, a secure foundation laid by Garvey for a true future independent Ghana, more along the lines of what Lumumba fought for. Maurice Bishop, Prime Minister of Grenada, paralleled his revolution with the anti-colonial struggle of the Garvey movement. Bishop's People's Revolutionary Government overthrew the previous Western puppet rule of Eric Gary. His intent was gradual reforms and progressive disengagement from imperialism. In 4 years, the island of Grenada became a self-organized society that acquired international status. Maurice Bishop was heavily inspired by Pan-Africanists and intensely studied the works of Julius Nyerere, first president of Tanzania, an anti-colonial activist who attempted a Pan-Africanist formation of an East African Federation. He also helped form the Organization of African Unity and also promoted cooperative agricultural villagization, or Ujamaa villages. And the spirit of Ujamaa still exists today in Tanzania and abroad. Also well studied in the works of Garvey. Thomas Sankara, 1983 Prime Minister of the West African country Burkina Faso, named himself as a replacement of the former colonial label, was another Pan-African revolutionary leader influenced by Garvey. Sankara rejected loans and capital from the International Monetary Fund, nationalized resources, and stressed economic self-reliance, and even forced the UN to recognize Burkina Faso as one of the only African countries to be truly food self-sufficient. Sankara raised the same cry of black pride as Garvey when he stated, "Africa to the Africans," and even incorporated Garvey's red and green colors into the design of his own national flag. Remnants of Sankara's revolutionary achievements still vibrate through West Africa today, particularly through the example of current Burkina Faso President Ibrahim Traoré and his AES alliance with neighboring countries Niger and Mali. Nelson Mandela, President of South Africa in 1994, who was originally an international anti-colonial freedom fighter. He and his wife Winnie and other activists like Steve Biko, leading founder of South Africa's Black Consciousness Movement, fought for self-governance and empowerment against Western dominance, and that pressure was able to defeat the apartheid-style British rule in South Africa. That struggle was directly rooted in the Black Power and Marcus Garvey movements. So basically, in short, without the generational ripple effect of the achievements and principles of Marcus Garvey, we may not have had the Nation of Islam, Malcolm X, the Black Power movement, or the Black Panthers, as well as national victories and initiatives over colonial power established by black leaders of entire countries, some of which just mentioned. Not to negate the global psychological and cultural impact of black pride and confidence, such as the Rastafarian movement in Jamaica, for example. Now, while none of us should ever devalue or minimize the great accomplishments of either Pan-Africans or other types of Black American efforts to liberate our people, if any so-called group does seek to dismiss Pan-Africanism from that arena, whether government-funded or otherwise, it should be clearly understood that when it comes to Black independent power and nationhood, our only true freedom, nothing has brought us closer. The accomplishments of Pan-Africanism are far superior than other movements, which have only gained certain legal rights for a purpose of a more comfortable subjective position within a society of European domination. When the black man finally acquires his liberation, i.e. social, political, economic nationhood, and we will, it will be the long-standing work and objectives given to us by Marcus Garvey over 100 years ago that will be credited as the major contributor, accomplishing more for the plight of those of African descent worldwide than any polarizing so-called Black American philosophies of today, and definitely accomplishing more than any person who has only contributed a few videos and a fake history museum. Marcus Garvey's example and legacy has spanned generations of progressive momentum within the Black struggle, the effects of which can still be felt today the world over. Were there failures? Yes. Was there mismanagement? Yes. However, the enduring perpetual impact of the Garvey movement on Black societal advancement cannot and should not be denied. As Garvey once said, "If I die in Atlanta, my work shall then only begin, but I shall live in the physical or spiritual to see the day of Africa's glory."
When my enemies are satisfied, in life I shall be the fame, in death I shall be a terror.